On today's episode, my guest is Brad Daugherty. He is the owner, founder at Hula Technology. But today we're going to spotlight his young son, Christian, who's a very brave and strong young man. Christian was diagnosed with a rare form of brain cancer in 2017. And let's just talk about what that the last year and a half has been like for you guys. Brad, thanks for coming out, sharing your story with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, Tell me about Christian before the diagnosis. What was he like? And
Yeah, so that's the beauty of this. In all honesty, he hasn't really changed a lot. In fact, he might have gotten a little nicer. He had some anger problems before the diagnosis, and I think it was all part of the tumor itself. And yeah, I mean, as far as the kid's concerned, he's a good kid. Yeah, it's just a smart young kid.
so he was your typical rambunctious, would have been 5, 6 at the time roughly.
Yeah, he was 6 at the time. So,
What led you guys to go to the doctor?
excuse me. So what happened was that the night that everything happened, it was real late on a Monday, and it was October. I want to say 20. I should know this by heart, but October 23rd. And what happened? We were sitting in bed. He had been complaining about some headaches, and next thing we know, he was just laying in the hallway, just screaming, and you could just tell there was a difference in his scream. It wasn't the typical fighting, things like that. It was a "I'm in pain" scream, and yeah, we picked him up. I comforted him. My wife comforted him. We called 911, and that was pretty much that was our trip to the hospital. It was.
So you guys went direct to Ball Memorial here in Muncie?
That's correct. So we went to Ball Memorial. They wanted to lifeline him to Riley, and at the time the weather wasn't permitting.
So how long were you guys at Ball then?
I want to say a couple hours when they finally figured out kind of what was going on, and basically what the diagnosis was at that time was brain hemorrhage. So there was bleeding in the brain. That was the extent of what we knew. And I remember hearing the nurses and stuff screaming at screaming at Riley, saying, you got to get him down here, talking about the helicopter and things like that. And they just said it's life or death. And man, hearing that about your 6-year-old, that was a rough moment.
I can imagine. So you guys got down to Riley. What was the events when you got down there?
So when we got to Riley, I remember the ambulance left Ball with my wife and son. I left with my youth pastor, with the youth pastor of the church, and he took me to Riley. And I remember they met midway. Riley met them midway, and they switched vehicles. So after they switched vehicles, then they headed over to Riley. So we actually ended up at the hospital very similar times. And I remember walking in to the emergency room, and when I saw him, he was laying down. They had him kind of sedated, I believe. And at that time, the doctor looked at me, and I shook his hand, and you can imagine tears and everything else. And I remember shaking his hand, and he said he'll take care of him. And he whisked him away, and what are they called? I remember her as Jen, but she came and gave us a teddy bear, and there was a teddy bear and just some stuffed animals basically. And her comment was that we could give them back to him when he got back out of the hospital, got out of surgery, and it was just reassuring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was surgery number 1. How many surgeries has he had since?
He's had 4 brain surgeries total, and 1 surgery in his lung. He had developed pneumonia and during the hospital stay, and so he had to get some stuff scraped out. So it was kind of gross, but
yeah,
it's part of it.
Were these surgeries back to back? Did they try to space them out?
So yeah, the initial surgery, and I'm going to get my dates wrong, I'm sure of it. This is actually why I started doing the Facebook post so I wouldn't forget. These surgeries were about, like the first surgery happened, and I think it was like 3 weeks, maybe. They had another one. So when they finally figured out what it was, then they went in and again. So the second surgery was fairly quick after that, and then the next surgery, what seemed like forever, but it was maybe a month later. And then the fourth surgery happened. A significantly longer time had passed, and at that time, the fourth surgery happened because the tumor ruptured again. It had grown back and then ruptured again.
Now these surgeries, did he go through chemotherapy during this or radiation?
So, no. And what happened was they were trying to remove the tumor at the time. The second surgery was not a good surgery at all. That was actually when we found out the tumor was malignant, because they didn't know at the time. So the second surgery, we found out the tumor was malignant, and that they didn't get everything that time.
So after you had the surgeries, what was the actual diagnosis?
So they call it a PXA grade 3, and that's what they labeled it as. There's a huge name for PXA. It's pleomorphous something, whatever. But it's a very rare tumor, and especially with kids. And it's also even more rare that it's cancerous.
Yeah.
So that's malignant.
So it makes it even more rare for your situation.
Yeah, they honestly, I mean, there's really no treatment plan. They have to just kind of, they're basically winging it.
You mentioned you guys obviously have spent a lot of time at Riley. How's Riley Hospital been for you guys?
So yeah, we spent 66 days at Riley, and Riley was absolutely amazing. In fact, my business will be donating to Riley. I will be donating to Riley any time that I have a chance to donate or raise money for Riley. You'll see our family probably right in the middle of it.
What did they do that was so comforting and separated themselves from other hospitals?
So I've never seen a hospital treat patients the way they do. Not only they treat the patients that way, but the beautiful thing about Riley is that at Riley, the kids are the patients, but then the family, they're also patients, because they're going through something. Every family member there, every mother, father there is going through something terrible. And the nursing staff, all the staff include the family as patients as well.
Just to clarify for those who aren't from the Indiana area listening, Riley is the major children's hospital for our state, I would be fair to say.
It's actually in the top 10, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, I know it's nationally known, and anyone I've talked to who's had experiences there, it's nothing but the best. So do you think they just bring in nurses and doctors that not only are experts in their fields, but also have the humility and personality to help along in the tough situations?
So the really cool thing that separates Riley is it's also a learning hospital. So you get a lot of young people that are learning how to treat patients. They may not get into the pediatric care, but they're going into that field. And what Riley does is just, I wish I could explain it in a better way. It's just an amazing hospital. And the fact that when they pull in these young kids to learn, first they're eager, and they're extremely, what's the word I'm looking for? They are just, they're ready to learn. And you have these experts in the field standing right next to what are probably some of the most green nursing staff and things like that. And they just work perfectly together, and they know how to take care of children, and they know exactly how to make a hospital not feel like a hospital.
Mm-hmm. What are a few examples they might have done with Christian that you like to share?
Yeah, absolutely. So at times, unfortunately Christian spent most of his time in the hospital under. Probably that first 40 days he was just he was not really coherent. When he finally came to and was starting to do different things, they would always, bring stuffed animals or toys. Something I remember very vividly was we have 4 children, and we wanted to bring the 3 children to see Christian. And I remember we let them know, said, hey, our kids will be coming. We just wanted to kind of let you know. The minute we did that, they ran into action. What they did was they took the wiring and all these cabling, they moved it around so it didn't look so scary. And they put the stuffed animals that he had gotten from all of the support, and they put it all around to make it less scary for the kids. And it was just, they went an extra mile, probably spent a good 2 hours just getting that room ready for our children.
Yeah.
To come see Christian. And I mean, those are special things. You just don't see that.
Yeah, because a hospital room can be so intimidating. I mean, even as an adult, you walk in, you see tubes and wires and machines are going off.
Yeah, absolutely.
The way I actually found out about your story was driving through Albany. Albany's a little small town in east central Indiana. It's my hometown. I saw red and yellow ribbons everywhere. I hadn't been in town for a couple weeks, and I just saw red and yellow ribbons on every light pole, every mailbox, every fence post. What was, and of course I had to ask someone in the community, and they said, oh, those are for Christian, and told me the story, and then I had the chance to meet you. Where did the ribbon idea come about?
So there is a flower shop in town, Liggett's, and I think she just decided to make some ribbons with the colors that Christian loves, and it's red and yellow for the flash.
Mm-hmm.
And she decided to make ribbons, and the next thing I know, the schools get involved, the businesses in town are getting involved. I mean, if you go to Pizza King there, you'll see the entire it looks like a small strip mall, but the entire area they're just covered in red and yellow ribbons. And it's just, all the businesses just got involved, and everybody just started buying them. They actually raised over $700 selling ribbons at $2 a piece, and the first 50 were free. So you can do the math. There's a lot of ribbons out there.
And Albany's a town of about 2,000 people, so there's not too many places missing a ribbon. The community outreach, just what I've read online on Facebook, it seems like it's been incredible. Not just here in Albany or Muncie, just from all over support.
So yeah, we could do a whole hours on how much support we got. There was some amazing moments. One, the school had gotten involved. They were the first ones to get involved, and they raised a bunch of money doing some community, like a lunch type deal. And then once the school got involved, then there was people around the world that got involved, which was really kind of shocking. I mean, there were people, I remember getting messages from Italy where it was written in Italian, and they're saying, God save this kid, or God save this child. And there was so many different moments. We had the businesses in Muncie actually got involved, and they donated a bunch of stuff, and they had a big auction, raised a ton of money. There was a gentleman in New York that I don't know who he is. I have no idea, but I opened up my check. In fact, I carry the envelope with me, but I opened the envelope up, and there's a $10,000 check in there.
Wow.
Just from somebody I don't know. It was just the outreach was absolutely shocking. And the beautiful thing about it was the money that was raised was almost the exact amount of what we needed to get through a lot of this.
It's incredible what communities and people can do for each other when people are facing bad times. And it's a shame. It seems like sometimes it takes those bad times to bring out the best in people. I'm sure you guys have seen that. Like you said, you never met a lot of these people. Italy, New York, this is small town Indiana.
Yeah.
Another thing I saw was actually on the news here in Indianapolis was Batman came and visited Christian at his elementary.
That made that kid's day. In fact, not only did it make Christian's day, it made, I think, the community. It just put a smile on everybody's face. And the beautiful thing, how that actually happened, is a really interesting story. A person that follows our story, I'm not jumping ahead here, am I?
No, you're good.
So a person that follows our story here, she had reached out to John, which is the West Virginia Batman, and his organization, and she had reached out to him, and all she wanted was just a video of him saying, hey, keep it up, buddy, keep up the fight, something like that. And that was all done on a Saturday, I believe it was. He happened to be in Bowling Green, Kentucky, which is about 4 hours away from us, and West Virginia is about 4 hours away from there. So he goes, you know what? It's going to take me 4 hours to get home. I'm just going to go ahead and swing by Indiana. So the next thing I know is he's calling me and says, hey, you need to get the news. You need to talk to the principal, which he was very accommodating. So he was going to do a whole presentation for the school. He usually charges for that because he has a nonprofit organization and a for-profit organization, and he usually charges for those for the schools and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he just came to the school and did a whole, got everybody assembled, and it was just a really amazing time.
Yeah, and his name is John Buckland. Like you said, he's out of West Virginia. I definitely wanted to mention him. What was that like for Christian to be at school and then Batman shows up?
So I remember when Batman came, and you just see the light in his eyes. He was lit up. And even though his favorite superhero is Flash, he made sure that he knew that. But it was just, that day, I remember Christian, his goal for that day was to not go to the nurse's office. And he had been going to the nurse's office about daily for headaches and things like that. And it was really important to him to not go to the nurse's office at that time. And I remember just having Batman there brought up his spirits. And I recall when he got in the Batmobile, because he got to ride in the Batmobile. And when he got in the Batmobile, I remember these kids behind me. And they're all having fun and like, whoa, look at that. And the next thing I know is Christian gets in the Batmobile, and these kids behind me, they're like, no way. You can imagine.
Yeah, I'm sure not just Christian. I mean, you have a school full of elementary kids and Batman, and I believe WTHR.
That's correct.
Okay, I'll try to share that link because the video is incredible.
Yeah,
and it is the legit Batmobile.
Yeah,
and he looks like a legit Batman. I mean, it's not. It's the full Monty.
It's pretty awesome, and the Batmobile is amazing. He actually on the inside of the Batmobile, when you pull open the hood, it has a lot of the fallen heroes, a lot of the kids that he's seen, and he puts a little plaque in there, and it's something to see. And I remember in the video with WTHR, one of the things that you'll hear is them singing, and there was a hot mic in the car, and they had no idea. Neither of them knew there was a hot mic. And so they're singing Batman smells, Robin laid an egg. And I remember Christian goes, but Batman does not smell. And it was just the most innocent, adorable thing. Just this banter back and forth between him and Batman. How cool is that?
Yeah, especially cruising around the streets of Albany.
Yeah.
And I believe if it's the same clip at the end of it, he talks how he didn't have to go to the nurse that day.
He did, actually. Yes, he did. That was he was very happy that he did not have to go to the nurse that day. And
that's incredible. I'll share that link because it's a really good video. It's just a couple minutes long. It's a spotlight on WTHR's news. Have any other really big surprises? I mean, you had Batman. You've had people from New York, Italy.
So yeah. In the last few months, we found out the tumor was growing back, and Make-A-Wish Foundation has been trying to work with us, and they've been trying to plan this amazing trip, and we were running out of time. The doctor actually looked at us and said, with the tumor hitting and pushing on the brainstem at this time, we don't know how much time we have. And one of the things that he wanted to make sure we did was that Make-A-Wish. So they rushed to get a Make-A-Wish together, and they sent us all to Hawaii. and it was words cannot describe how amazing that trip was. And I will say this about Make-A-Wish. Those aren't vacations for families. What they are memories for the family that they'll be able to hold on. We'll be able to hold on to that trip for the rest of our lives. And if something bad happens to Christian, we'll never forget that trip.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ever, Make-A-Wish is just an amazing organization. I just want to give that a shout out because they are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're just an amazing organization. The power of just doing something, a trip like that, and being refreshed in a way, you could just tell the difference even in Christian,
What adventures did you guys get to do while you were in Hawaii?
Yeah, so he wanted to go to Hawaii because that was Moana. Moana was from that area, and we got to go to it's like a Polynesian culture center, that was more Moana based and things like that. So he got to experience that stuff. And then the thing that he was looking forward to the most was swimming with dolphins. And he got to, kiss a dolphin, swim with a dolphin. It was just he had an amazing time.
Swimming with dolphins is incredible. I actually, if I got the chance to do that on my honeymoon, and you don't understand the power and just how smart those creatures are. And I was blown away at 28. I couldn't imagine being 6 years old and getting that adventure.
Yeah, he absolutely loved it. It was just it was an amazing experience, and it was just one of those things that, like I said, we'll always be able to hold on to. It's a memory that we'll never forget.
Absolutely. Are you familiar with ZPL, the radio station 99.5? They do it's the phone-a-thon. It's right around Thanksgiving.
I am familiar with the station. I am not familiar with what you're talking about, though.
Me and my wife, it's always around Thanksgiving because I know we're driving to her parents' house in Ohio, and it's basically, I think, 36 straight hours of you call in and request a song, you make a donation, and then of course Colts players call in and they grant. I think it's I'll have to double check. I think it's like 60, 70 wishes in that. They get to like $8,000, whatever the amount be. Then they do a little spotlight on the child and say, hey, your wish just got granted. You're going to Hawaii or Disney World or whatever. So
that is awesome.
Yeah, it's really neat, and you can call in and request anything you want. But it's through Make-A-Wish, and I know it's something. I think it's over Thanksgiving, but I'll let you know on that, and you guys will have to check that out. But ZPL.
Absolutely.
It's incredible the amount of money they can raise in such a short amount of time. Obviously, I follow him on Facebook, and I saw that Christian made honor roll this last semester.
I mean, think about this. He's had 4 brain surgeries. His brain, actually, if you look at a MRI, there's a space in his brain. It almost looks like it's a hole, basically. I mean, the tumor was the size of basically a baseball. I mean, it was huge. So this spot in his brain, and he's missing this part, and here he is making honor roll.
That's amazing.
It's just it's absolutely the most amazing thing I've ever experienced.
How was because he attends Albany Elementary? How was the staff and the administration at Albany worked with him and obviously worked with the family?
Yeah, so of course he had a lot of homework to catch up, and they've been very reasonable about give him time to catch that up, and he's caught all of it up, and so he's been able to do all of that. The other thing that they do is they accommodate. For instance, he can't play in gym, and one of the things that they do, or recess. So one of the things that they do is, and this was actually one of the teachers was telling us at our last meeting we had. She said that she was getting ready to tell him to not pick the same person to stay inside with him and play. And before she even had a chance to say it, he's thinking about other people, and he says, "Well, yesterday I got to play with this child. I'll play with such and such, now." And he just has a heart of gold. I know that's kind of off topic of what you were talking about, but it's just the kid has a heart of gold. It's just amazing. But the school itself, um, they're just there for us. I don't know how else to put it, but I called the principal on a Saturday, telling him that, hey, do you think Batman can come to the school?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, we'll make it work.
That's awesome.
I mean, yeah, you can't get any more accommodating than that.
No. Hey, if we can mess up your whole scheduled day and bring in Batman.
Exactly.
But I mean, just look at the result. Not just Christian, but the whole school, the community. I mean,
yeah,
you see it everywhere on the news and everything.
Yeah, those kids have really learned a lot from Christian's story, I think.
Yeah.
They really have, and you can just see the kids, even the kids in general. They're all good kids, and they, if Christian has trouble, you can tell that the whole school is behind him.
Yeah,
picking him up.
That's great. One thing I want to touch on, you're the owner founder of Hula Technology, which is an IT company. You can obviously give me more detail on that because that's all I know. But
so we're a managed IT company. It started about 4 years ago. So I was in my third year when all of this stuff happened, basically. If you've ever experienced starting a business, those first 3 years can be the most challenging. And then to throw a 66-day hospital stay, in the mix there, plus all the other stress of being unsure of everything and how everything's going to go. You can imagine how difficult that was, but we're going strong. Everything's been good.
How have you been able to manage, keeping your business afloat? Because you don't have sick days, you don't have leave of absence time because it's just you, right? You're the main.
Yeah. So that's exactly right. And I actually learned a lot from this. If you do own a business, as quickly as possible, hire somebody. And I will tell you that because, I sat in the hospital many nights, just sitting there trying to figure out how I'm going to manage all this. And I would try to remote in. Thankfully, with IT, you can remote in a lot. And I utilized that advantage. But, even though you're remoting in, working on things and keeping things running, the problem is that your head's not in the business, and it creates quite a few challenges. The way that I was able to maintain was, thankfully, when I first started the business, the goal was to automate as much as possible, and I was successful at that, which allowed me a lot of freedom.
Before the diagnosis and everything, how was your work-life balance? Between work and home. I know obviously starting a new business, so you feel like you got to work as many hours as possible, and it takes time away from home. How was that before and after?
So I will be completely honest with you. I wasn't a good dad, and I'm sure it was fine, but I really wasn't a great dad. And before the diagnosis, I think you get in these ruts and routines, especially when you're trying to run a business and learning. You're spending countless of hours at work. And what I would do is I'd come home and, sit on the couch, fall asleep. And, the kids, time to go to bed. Okay, I'll send them to bed. And, yes, I wasn't a terrible dad, but I was a dad that, wasn't as actively involved with my children.
I think it's tough because you're just wanting to build this business to be a better provider, but sometimes just being present is all you need.
I've learned that.
Yeah, that's tough for everyone. I think everyone struggles with that.
Well, what I've learned though from all of this is after the diagnosis and after he got home, I learned the value of time, and by that I mean, it doesn't matter, yes, Christian spent all that time in the hospital, but any of my children at any point in time, my wife, anybody, the people I love in my life, they may not be there the next day. And so I have to make every single day count. And that's really the lesson I learned, that, each day is a blessing. That's just all there is to it. and you either make an experience out of it and enjoy that day, or you don't, and it's just another day that's gone. So we don't have too many days that just kind of go by anymore.
You don't take any day for granted now, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think that might lead to your Onward Christian Soldiers updates.
Yeah. So when I first initially started the Facebook post, they were just general updates, and it would say update number, blah, 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 1, 2, all the way up to 66. There was a military man that came and delivered a sign during those 66 days. And on that sign, it said, Onward Christian Soldiers. And, I didn't think anything of it at the time, and I thought, how cool was that? That's just awesome. Christian and Christian Soldiers is awesome. And I actually called him and said, hey, do you mind if I use that in my updates? And he's like, oh, absolutely, go ahead. And so the 67th day is day 1 of Onward Christian Soldier updates. I've just done it. I've done it I haven't missed a day yet. I don't know how long I'll do it. I don't know,
There's a big following. I know every evening I read it and I look on there and there's 750 likes and 200 comments. So I think you're reaching out to people.
Yeah. And I think the goal of that message is to, I want people to understand that no matter what, even though I'm going through all of this, and that even though Christian is diagnosed with cancer and we don't know how much time and all these things. Now, I want people to understand that God didn't do this. Of course, we're a very Christian family. But the goal of that is to understand that, it doesn't matter what you're going through, that God is good all the time. And that was kind of the message with that Onward Christian Soldiers is I just want to make sure that I understand that, no matter what you're going through, it's there. You can find something positive in it. And there's something amazing and beautiful, even in tragedy.
Yeah. What is a way, obviously people can donate money, which is great. What are some ways, even if it's not Christian or if it's in a whole nother state, that people can reach out and help families in similar situations?
That's a really good question. I don't know. One of the things that is really hard that I want everybody to understand when you're talking to a family that's going through this, or just don't ask them, or don't, let me rephrase that. When you're talking to somebody that maybe is going through this, one of the things you don't want to do, and you'll mean well when you say it. You'll say things like, "How can I help?" The reality of it is most of the time, the family that you're asking that to is in shock. It could be months from now. I mean, I'm still, I still sometimes find myself in shock in some way. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know how much medical bills we're going to have, and I don't think these people that you're helping, they can't even comprehend what they're going through currently. So one of the worst questions, and like I said, most people mean well when they say these things. But if you truly want to help somebody, just do it. And, just send that card. Just send that certificate. Just send that whatever. And what I would always use is whatever God's laying on your heart. But, if you're not necessarily a believer or something like that, just whatever that little voice in your head is saying, hey, I'd like to help these people. Just do it. And you'll be surprised at how thankful and how much it means to that person.
It almost takes the burden off the family of more decision making and thinking. Just be proactive with it, even if it's a card, a meal, a donation. Just go ahead and send it. Drop it off.
That's exactly right. And if it's something you need to ask their permission for, just ask. That's fine. Ask their permission. Hey, I want to start this whatever fundraiser. Go ahead and ask their permission, but don't ask them what you can do to help them.
Okay.
Because they don't know.
Yeah, because I do think a lot of people want to help, but that's usually the first question, what can I do? That's really good advice. I think for a lot of things, just, take that nice gesture and just act on it. Now, I know you guys have an MRI coming up in February, kind of the next.
Yeah, we do. And one of the things earlier in this podcast where I said, the tumor was on the brainstem and things like that, I do want to say 2 months ago, after our trip to Hawaii, we got back, the tumor is actually shrinking and pulled away from the brainstem, and also has a dead spot in the middle.
Wow.
So there's some cool things happening there. It looks good. Now, so this next, this February 5th MRI is one of those very intimidating MRIs where you want to know, but you don't.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to just finding out what's happening in there. And if I told you I wasn't scared, then I would completely be lying to you. So there is a little bit of fear there, but I've always found that with that little bit of fear, I just kind of put it aside, leave it in God's hands for me. But I just kind of put it away and stay focused on every moment I have with Christian. And so the MRI will hopefully tell us that that it's continuing to shrink. That's what we want to see. That's what we want to hear.
So is this hypothetical, maybe the Hawaii trip, or is it just coincidence, you think?
So I think it surprised a little bit. It surprised the oncologist, and they've been working with different genetic. So Christian has been genetically mapped fully. His tumor is fully mapped, and he is fully mapped. So they compared the two. They found different avenues to possibly block it. Now, he started a new chemo treatment. It's a targeted chemo. It could potentially be that's helping. Of course, in our eyes, it's just God working. But from a medical perspective, that's what they're currently changed. Those were the change points, and I think it surprised the doctors in some way because they didn't expect it to shrink. In fact, the conversations were very real. The last appointment before when the tumor was growing back, and we asked, what is it going to happen? It's pushing on this brainstem. We have no idea what's going to happen. And the doctor looked at us and said, at some point he will probably stop breathing. And we had to look at him and say, well, what do we do if he stops breathing? And when your doctor looks at you and says, it's really your decision, meaning you can either comfort him or take him to the hospital, but either way the end result is the same. That's a hard thing to hear.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it was a tough one, but the reality is what it is everything is looking up, and as good as it can be. We're just taking every single day and just enjoying every single moment.
Now, did you share a post about a girl in, was it Tennessee, Kentucky, who had a tumor that kind of did a similar thing?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a girl, I actually was very aggravated, I think, at that time. But yes, I did share that, and it was a post that she had, it basically had just disappeared. The tumor had just completely disappeared, vanished. So, of course, the family is thanking God and things like that. The doctors really don't know what happened. But yeah, I believe it was Texas. If I remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember you sharing that because I get on and read your updates every day, and I thought that's a miracle in itself right there. And then you guys talk about the good news you've had over the last couple months.
Yeah, something, and I'm gonna hopefully I don't turn off your audience a little bit, but one of those things with the miracle side of it, one of the things that's been the most beautiful piece to Christian, he doesn't remember any of the pain at all. He's been through 4 brain surgeries and doesn't have any knowledge of the pain associated with those surgeries. His first memory, real memory, was when he woke up and was going to, oh my goodness. His first memory was when he woke up and was going in and getting physical therapy and was doing different therapies. So his memory of pain associated with this has been his legs hurt, his 4th surgery, he was actually, they gave him pain medication, that second. We were actually playing video games about 2 hours after surgery.
Really?
Yeah. and he he kept saying he didn't have a headache or anything. We went home 2 days later, and the only thing that he really had for pain management was a couple of Tylenol.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, so to me, those moments are miracles. The amount of life he has been able to experience is a miracle in itself. And the fact that he hasn't had any pain or anything associated with that, and he's still getting straight A's. And if you saw him without the scars, it looks like nothing's wrong with him. He just looks like a normal kid. And it's just that those things like that, there was times when they didn't even think he was going to be able to move his left arm or his left leg.
Mm-hmm.
So these are all just different things that I've experienced. So yeah. And anyway, I don't want to get you off subject too much.
No, you're
but
good.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the amount of strength and knowledge you've gained from him is unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we have some friends that were with us during this time while we're in the hospital and stuff. And every night, one of the things, we pray, and he never lets me forget certain people. Tyler Trent would be one.
Mm-hmm.
He would never let me forget those people in prayer. He would always finish, even if I said, do my prayer and say amen, he'd be like, oh, and
you got to make sure you got those people in there, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it was he's a kid that you can definitely learn from.
That's incredible. Yeah, Tyler Trent. I remember watching that Purdue Ohio State game, and something in that stadium that night was special.
Tyler's a very special individual, and we had the pleasure of meeting him, and it was near his end of life. But I just see the way that he took the story is very similar to the way that we're taking our story, and I love that.
Yeah.
When you can find beauty in tragedy, there's something special there.
Absolutely. Once again, thank you so much for coming out and sharing this story. It's a very, very powerful story. And where can people reach you, or Facebook, or anywhere people can contact you or help follow the onward updates?
Yeah. So when I first started this, I should have probably put it on a page. I didn't. All I did was just started giving people updates, and it turned into much bigger. Since then, I've just kept it that way. You'll not see anything on my post from anything other than Onward Christian Soldiers. So if you do a search in either Facebook or something like that, you'll be able to find us with Onward Christian Soldiers, or hashtag courage with the number 4 Christian. You should be able to find me. Again, my name is Brad Daugherty. You'll be able to follow me on that page. If you just want to follow, that's fine. If you want to friend me, that's fine as well.
Great. Brad, thanks again so much. I really appreciate you coming out. Hopefully people will listen to this, be inspired, be moved, and maybe just think about things as well. As always, you can contact me with comments, questions, the Jake Sewell Podcast at gmail.com, or tweet me at the JS Podcast. Thanks.